about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1608 on the cheap side of London, and I attended Cambridge University.
You have written 23 sonnets. What were some of the inspirations for those sonnets?
My inspiration for those sonnets came from the death of my second wife.
I noticed that you were active during the English Civil War. What exactly did you do?
Well, during the English Civil War, I wrote pamphlets for the parliamentary side, and when the monarchy was restored, they threw me out and put me into the Tower of London.
Wow. Have there been any other significant events in your life?
Well, a significant event of my life was when I lost my eyesight.
How has that affected you?
It caused me to question my faith and led me to writing my new poem, one of my more famous poems, which was When I Consider How My Light Was Spent.
Interesting. Thank you for your time, Mr. Milton.
Tell me about yourself.
My name is William Wordsworth. I was born April 7th, 1770, and I went to school at Cambridge.
Were there any remarkable events in your childhood?
Probably the deaths of my parents. My mother died when I was 8, and my father when I was 13.
When did you publish your first poem?
In 1793, I actually published 2. The first was called An Evening Walk, and the second was called Descriptive Sketches.
1798 to 1808 has been described as the great decade in your life. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think it's well-deserved. I did most of my publishing in that time. In 1798 and 1800, I published 2 collections of my poems, both called lyrical ballads.
And after your great decade, what did you do?
In 1802, I married Anne Hutchinson, and by 1812, I was working under the patronage of Lord Lonsdale. Since then, I've been republishing my earlier poems. Some people say it's a shame that I'm no longer writing, but I'm quite content.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Maya Angelou, and I was born April 4th, 1928 in St. Louis.
Okay, and when did you discover your love of language?
That was probably when I was 7 years old, because I told my uncles about a man who raped me, and they killed him. So I decided that it was my words that had killed the man, so I decided not to speak for 5 years. But I did read extensively during that time, and I ended up memorizing the works of Shakespeare and Dickens at the age of 8.
Who are some well-known figures you've met and worked with?
Well, I've worked on civil rights issues with Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I read a poem at President Clinton's inaugural address, and I'm good friends with Oprah Winfrey.
Okay, well, what have you gotten published?
Let's see, 6 autobiographies, a couple essays, 2 or 3 books on poetry, a couple plays. Oh, and I published a cookbook in 2010.
Wow, okay, thank you so much for your time, Miss Angelou.
Thank you.
So apparently I have some fan mail, but seeing as I am blind, I can't read it, so I'll have my assistant do so. Assistant?
Yes, Mr. Melton?
Could you please read these?
Yes. Dear Mr. Milton, I found that your poetry simultaneously looks back on creation as it looks forward to the future. I'd even speculate that much of your creativity comes from a question over creation itself. Your critic, Camille Stone Staton. Okay.
Oh, nice.
All right, you have one more. Dear Mr. Milton, by age 43, you must have been tempted to bitterness and despondency. But your brilliant sonnets are proof enough that your talent has not been rendered useless by age and blindness. Sincerely, the Milton Reading Room. It looks like I've received some fan mail. Dear Mr. Wordsworth, you write depressing poems. Disappointment is your favorite subject. You dwell on themes of nostalgia, anxiety, and regret. My friend Mary Jacobus says that your poem Tintern Abbey has a tone of exhaustion and elegy, and that it searches sadly for renewal. Please find happier things to write about. Sincerely, Laura Quinney. Well, for now, let's look at the other one. Detail. Dear Mr. Wordsworth, let's talk about your poem Tintern Abbey. In your earlier poems, your subjects move, there is action. But in Tintern Abbey, you remove action from the subject and instead focus on the energy and the universe. Sincerely, Nicholas.
Well, it looks like I have some fan mail, so I'm just gonna see what's in here. Dear Miss Angelo, although I consider you a poet of moderate ability, I must praise your poetry for its honesty and moving sense of dignity. Yours truly, Lyman B. Hagen. I'm not sure how I feel about that one, to be honest. Now for the second one. Dear Miss Angelo, frankly, I find your poems to be thin in substance, lacking in poetic invention, and lack luster in language. Sincerely, I prefer to remain anonymous.